Welcome to the Wired for Success podcast, your show for ambitious, mission-driven entrepreneurs who want to build million-dollar businesses without sacrificing their health, relationships, or happiness, who understand that in order to build their empire, they need a solid foundation, and that the more they are thriving, the more their business is thriving too. This show brings you the very best from science, self-development, and entrepreneurship to set you up for sustainable success. Hi, I'm Claudia Garbutt, the scientist turned mindset and high performance coach for entrepreneurs, and I help you get wired for success. Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Wired for Success podcast, where we talk about all things science, self-development, and entrepreneurship that help you get to that next level of success in your life and business. My guest today is Custer, the founder and CEO of Vortic Watches, one of the only truly American-made watch companies. His journey is a masterclass in entrepreneurial resilience, high-performance habits, and business success. RT took his company from an idea to a thriving seven-figure business, all while overcoming major challenges. And this sounds super intriguing, so I can't wait to hear more about it. Welcome, RT, and thank you so much for being on my show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Claudia. It's an honor to be here.
Absolutely, and looking forward to this. RT, your company restores antique American pocket watches and turns them into one-of-a-kind wristwatches. I mean, what inspired you to build this business rather than something else?
Yeah, so I like to say we preserve American history one watch at a time. And that's the real inspiration, is that 100 years ago, America was the Switzerland of the world. We made the best watches in the world from about 1850 to 1950. And back then they were all pocket watches. And, now today, most people have no use for a pocket watch, and they get scrapped for gold and silver. And so we are upcycling, but the inspiration is one, history, learning about the history, kind of telling those stories of American history and, American manufacturing, but also answering that question that my business partner and I originally asked, which is, why are all watches made in Switzerland and China? Why are watches not made in USA? That's where it came from. And we started trying to answer that question. And now we're so far down the rabbit hole that we can't get out.
Interesting. But what made you decide to focus on watches? I mean, you could have upcycled anything, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So my friend Tyler and I had this idea on the golf course at Penn State about, 14 years ago at this point. And he was a watch guy. He had a little collection of vintage Timexes and, inexpensive watches. He was wearing a watch on the golf course. I thought that was weird. I'm swinging a golf club with nothing on my wrist. I don't even wear a glove when I play golf. I just like it. I feel like all that gets in the way. And so I found it fascinating that he loved watches so much that he was wearing one while, doing a sport that I thought it might distract him. And he took golf really seriously. So I was like, just really fascinated by how much he loved watches. That kind of just sparked this conversation about watches, where they're made, how they're made. And I studied engineering. He was studying mathematics. And so we were nerds. And so we just went, down that rabbit hole of, why are watches not made in America? Watches just sounded really interesting. It's like a tiny little engine that tells time. From a marketing standpoint, it's really fascinating because right now you don't need a watch, so we sell things you don't need for thousands of dollars. It's like a luxury item, and luxury-based marketing is fascinating to me. That's why I have all these liquor bottles behind me. I just think the luxury world is fascinating, especially from a marketing standpoint. And so, just all those different rabbit holes. And engineering to me is creative problem solving. And so we just started getting creative and solving problems. And here we are, one of, if not the only truly American made wristwatches.
Interesting. And I think we'll come back to the luxury marketing because that's something that I think is super interesting as well. But before we do, since you are a nerd, what do you think? Do you think that building those bespoke watches changed your personal sense of time?
So I like to say, from a time standpoint, since we live in this luxury world and we make these luxury products and we're manufacturing wristwatches, nothing in my world should be urgent. And so we're not saving lives. Like I run a manufacturing company. We're cutting metal here. We could make things that save lives or take lives, but instead we make something that is just a little engine that tells time. And so with this advanced manufacturing, it's so cool because my customers, when they buy a watch, it's like part of their life. They're celebrating something. They always say like, hey, take your time. Like they order custom watches and, they send me grandpa's pocket watch to turn into a wristwatch. And there should be no urgency in this world. And so to answer your question, I think my perception of time is really tied into my perception of life and how I want to live life, which is if it's urgent, it's stressful. Mm-hmm. I don't want things to be urgent. I don't want things to be last minute. And that's why I think I'm so aligned on running a business like this, is because in theory, it should be fairly stress-free. It should be fun. It should be pretty straightforward. I have really interesting and fun customers and clients, and we're, selling things in this world that is also just fascinating in and of itself, because most people don't even know that my niche exists.
That's true. It's an interesting niche. And something that I often think about is that how you do one thing is usually how you do everything, right? And there's always this bleed over effect. So I'm always fascinated by people who have to use a lot of like precision and patience and just the care that you need to create those amazing watches. So I was wondering, how much of that do you feel that has really, like the process has really changed who you are or how you live your life?
So for me, I don't do any of the physical work of building a watch. I like to say I'm just an engineer. I'm not a watchmaker. I had all the original ideas with my co-founder. And even though I studied engineering, I don't actually, write the code or run the machines that we use. My job at this point is to be the visionary. It's to be the entrepreneur. It's to be the guy that says, okay, this is the direction we're going, and then find people that love the work and want to get their hands dirty and help me bring these products to life. And so I have no patience. I am not a patient person. I cannot sit at a desk and work with my hands and build something for very long. The best I can do is Legos with my kids. And really, that's just because I'm following the instructions in the Lego book. So I can't really get too frustrated there. And so for me, I like to move fast. I like to think big. I like to surround myself with people that can work on the very intricate projects. And I firmly believe in that concept of only do what only you can do. And so I hire experts, I hire artists, and they are amazing at what they do, whether it's the watchmakers through this wall building the watches, whether it's the people restoring the old pocket watches, whether it's my engineering team writing the code to run the machines that cut the metal, whether it's my videographer actually filming this content, editing it, doing the art of making me look good on camera, all of that kind of stuff. Like, I love surrounding myself with people that are just fantastic at what they do, and they can go deep in their area of expertise, and I can stay big and broad and wide because that's where I prefer to live.
Right. So it's all about hiring people that complement you and have those skills you need.
That have patience.
Yes, have patience.
they have patience for dealing with me too, right? Like the last few times I've interviewed people, I recorded a video, and I send a video to like my top 10 candidates for every role, and I try to scare them away. I say, this is going to be intense, like this working for me is intense. I'm all over the place. You have to be okay with that. And it either scares people away because they're like, I'd rather work for someone who's, different, or it excites them and they're just like, okay, this person is really passionate about what they do and I want to do something different. And so, again, I try to hire people that have the patience for their work for me, that have the same level of passion that I do for all these things, and can put their heads down and get this work done while I'm off working on the next thing and creating the next job.
And how did people react? I mean, how many were scared away and how many actually said, yeah, this is amazing, I want to do this?
You know, it's funny. The last time I think I sent that video to 20 potential people, and I believe 16 or 17 of them responded favorably. And so I think that really is a testament, because I started with about 150 people that applied for that job, narrowed it down to about that 20. And so I think that was a testament to our recruiting process. And it's one of the reasons I'm here. I love doing video content. I love long form content. I put a lot of YouTube videos out there because, you know, I've found a lot of the people that I'm interviewing, I ask them if they have any questions about what it's like to work here. And they're like, you know what? I've already watched a couple hours of you speak on YouTube. And so I kind of think I know what it might be like to work there, and I'm excited. And so, yeah, that's a learning that I've had just by putting myself out there and trying, right? And so far, so good.
And you really love the content creation side of the business as well?
I love marketing. I love storytelling. I love the light bulb moment for the customer, you know, especially when I'm selling watches in person at an event or a trade show or something like that, and I'm describing what we do. You know, Vortic is a mixture of Vortex and TikTok, a beautiful clash of old and new. We're taking antique American pocket watches, turning them into wristwatches. I can say that enough times, but then eventually someone's holding the watch, they flip it over, or they go see my website and they're looking at the watches, and the light bulb goes off and like, wait a second. You're saying that everything inside this watch is 100 years old. It's from an old pocket watch made in Boston in 1912. With that light bulb moment, I mean, it gives me goosebumps. It's so exciting because that's unlocking a new level of storytelling, and it just opens all these other questions. They're like, well, tell me more about the company that made the watch. Tell me more about the history. You know, when we write the descriptions of these products, we say, like, fun fact, in 1912, the price of bread was this much. Like, just fun cool things to take you back in time and say, like, wow, okay, this is literally a piece of American history, and I get to purchase it. So anyway, the psychology of marketing and the storytelling behind it is what I love.
That's great. So let's stick with the storytelling then. So you already touched on this a little bit, but I was curious as to, like, when you define what you do or your mission, you already mentioned you're trying to preserve history. So do you see it as a form of time travel, or is it kind of maybe a rebellion against all the, like, disposable culture of today? Or I guess what I'm really asking is, what are the values your company is fighting for, or what are you fighting against?
I wake up every morning and I fight for my American dream. My definition of the American dream is different. I think everyone's is different, and that's okay. That's kind of the point of America, right? We all get to live in this free country and wake up, me as an entrepreneur, and do whatever the heck I want every single day. And what I want is to build a life for myself, for my family, for my employees, for my friends, for everyone around me that also supports their dreams. I am a dreamer. I have big ideas and big visions. And I want that to be okay. I want that to be fun. I want to wake up and choose joy. I want to come home exhausted and tell my kids about all the great things that I got to do today, and all the cool people that I met, and all of the great things that got accomplished today by myself and my team, and all the cool stuff we did. And so to me, it's not just about watches, maybe because I run multiple brands: Vortic Watch Company, Colorado Watch Company. My grand vision is to have a group of watch companies all backed by a big American manufacturing company, which is what I run. And so we are, America's watch manufacturing business. And it's all me, and it's my crazy ideas that become less crazy every day as we get closer to achieving them.
That's amazing. And something that really resonated with me was how the importance you put on joy, because joy is something that a lot of entrepreneurs just lose along the way. So how do you make sure that you still enjoy what you do every day?
So I think the first thing to answer that question is to know yourself. And that's taken me a very long time to figure out. I've explored all of those things. I think joy and preventing burnout comes from the constant reminder for me to stay curious. And I think the world and life so far, I'm 34, but in my 34 years, most of that time, the world and other people around me and difficult things and circumstances start to pull and force that curiosity out. And so asking questions and spending time with people that are really passionate about what they do, asking them questions, figuring out where they get joy. You can learn so much about yourself by either helping others or spending time with others, kind of masterminding like that. And to really answer your question, I've tried to be as curious as possible and to constantly search for that joy every day in all different things. And for me, when I feel myself getting burnt out, I remember that, oh, well, I've basically just been punching the clock for the last, 7 days or 2 months or whatever. I need to get my head out of the sand, look around, realize how freaking great I have it every day, and start to get a little more curious. And whether that's doing something else, like working on a different project, diving into something with the team and helping solve a problem, or taking a break and taking a vacation, spending a little bit more time with my family, actually taking a weekend off. That's hard for me. Things like that will help prevent that burnout. But again, I'm not perfect, and I struggle with that all the time. It's just, I have to come back to myself and be like, what do I need today?
That's an important question. And I also agree that curiosity is a superpower. And it's something that we should not lose along the way. And it's also something that I find when I have one of those bad days that we all have, that often brings me back, and just listening to, say, a science podcast, something that sparks that curiosity and is like, oh, this is amazing. I've never thought about it this way. And all of a sudden you're back in a good mood, and you're curious again. I think that's really an important thing to understand, how often curiosity is linked to joy. At least for us. I don't know if that is the same for everyone, or if it's just for nerds like us.
Yeah, I don't know. I would speculate that for some people, that curiosity or that path to discovering joy may manifest as more like exploration, right? It's moving your body. It's literally like doing something different. A lot of people, and I feel this a lot of times, I just need to change my environment. So, like for me, if I really need to reset and recharge, I get on an airplane and I go to the beach, and just one day, like one morning, just walking as far down the beach as I can and walking back in the sunshine resets my whole life. And I'm like, okay, I'm whole again. And I don't know if it's the sunshine or the, sand between my toes or the sound of the ocean waves. But I think whether it's joy, it's curiosity, it's excitement, it's, exploration, it's changing your environment. It's doing something different, because doing the same thing over and over again, it burns you out really fast.
Yeah. It's the pattern interrupt. You need your pattern to be interrupted every now and then to get back. And this might not be a fair question, but do you have a favorite watch?
So my favorite watch is what we call the military edition, and I'm wearing one, but this watch is an original antique American pocket watch from World War II. So the dial, the hands, and the movement, the guts of our military edition, was originally in a pocket watch called the Master Navigator's Watch. And if you were the navigator on a B-17 Flying Fortress in World War II, or a similar bomber aircraft in the Second World War, you had one of these pocket watches. It was the most accurate pocket watch made during World War II. And a lot of people refer to it as the watch that won the war. We take 50 of those watches once a year on Veterans Day. It's the only day you can buy it, November 11th, 12 noon Mountain Time. The military edition is released. We've done 6 of them so far, 6 years in a row. They sell out like that. It's our most expensive product. It's the one that everybody wants, but it is truly a piece of American military history, and you can feel it when you put it on.
Amazing history there. Now, do you sometimes give pocket watches away as gifts? Because I don't know if you have the same saying in the US, but in Germany we kind of have a saying that you don't give watches as gifts because that means that person's time is running out.
Yeah, it's I don't think we have that saying. I've never heard somebody mention like time is running out. That's amusing to me. It's a little morbid.
Yeah, it is good, right?
but we have our customers buy watches as gifts all the time. I think that's interesting. I think a watch as a gift is a great gift from my perspective because it's something that is a conversation piece. It's something that's an heirloom. It's going to last a long time. To your point, it's slightly morbid, but like these watches that I make, the pocket watch inside is already 100 years old. We make these watches, all the watches we make, to last a lifetime and to last more than a lifetime. So these are meant to be handed down to the next generation. They're meant to last hundreds of years. They already have, the pocket watch has. And so yeah, I guess, if you think about it like that, it is something that will outlive you. But the way I think about that is that's really cool because in my opinion, we live in a throwaway society. Most things in life today you use for a few years and then the battery dies or the product is obsolete and you have to throw it away and get another one. The watches that we make, you just have to basically change the oil or service them every 5 to 10 years and then they'll go forever. So that makes me feel good. And I think it's a great gift, but I will say most of my customers gift it to themselves.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Now let's talk a little bit about marketing and the business side of things. You have built a successful 7-figure business, and I know that needs a lot of organization and structure. I'm curious, what's one, say, mainstream productivity hack that completely did not work for you, and what did you do instead? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Ooh, did not work for me is the 4-day work week.
Oh,
so we tried the 4-day work week for, we were on the 4-day work week for 6 years or so. I can't operate like that. I work, for my team for that time, it was 4 10-hour days, which is great. I worked 6 or 7 10-hour days. So I just couldn't relate to the idea of taking 3 days off every week. From a recruiting standpoint, it was cool. People want that. They think they want that. But also in physical labor, especially, and in a really mentally taxing environment like watchmaking, like engineering, like the really difficult things that we do, 10 hours is a really long time. So you get really tired by the end of that day, and especially 4 days in a row. So maybe it's a hot take, but that doesn't work. We tried it. And I changed that about a year ago. We made, everybody here that works with me. I would say the other thing that we do differently that hasn't worked for us, but we are different is remote work. So every single person that works for me works full time in the office right here in this building, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Actually 8 to 5, a full 8-hour day with an hour break. And so that just works for us. You divide that work across now 5 days. You still get 2 days off. We have amazing benefits and PTO and all the other things that you can use for, taking time off and protecting yourself. But 4-day work week just wasn't for us.
Interesting. Well, I think that's something that every company has to figure out for themselves.
Yeah.
So what would you say was the most difficult challenge that you experienced while growing your business to that 7-figure success?
I've been through a lot of hard things. probably the most difficult thing I've been through as an entrepreneur is getting sued by the largest company in my industry. It's called the Swatch Group, massive, Swiss watch conglomerate.
Mhm.
And they sued me over trademark infringement and counterfeiting.
Ooh,
And
how come?
that, well, so it's a long story, but the short version is that we take antique American pocket watches and turn them into wristwatches. The lawsuit is called Hamilton v. Vortic. Hamilton is one of the brands that Swatch Group owns.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the watches that we build as Vortic, they are antique Hamilton pocket watches. So it says
Yeah.
Hamilton on the face of the watch, but that's a 100-year-old pocket watch in there. All the outside of the watch is made in USA, built in Colorado, made by Vortic. It's very clear to my customers, I think, of what we do. We're upcycling. The inside is old, the outside is new. But Swatch Group, through their Hamilton subsidiary, accused us of basically using their name to make money. That's what trademark infringement is. And counterfeiting, the part of that that's counterfeiting is, or was alleged counterfeiting, was they thought we were stamping or printing the Hamilton name on the dials. Now, you'd think once I hand a watch to one of them and their company or one of their attorneys and explain what we do, hey, everything on the inside is old, that's all original. I'm not stamping the word Hamilton on anything. You would think that that would go away and it could just be a conversation between two adults and we make this right. Unfortunately, that's not how, big company suing small company works. And that was a 6-year legal battle where I now could tell you almost everything about trademark law. And we went almost all the way to the Supreme Court. We went to all the way through the federal justice system of the United States. I sat in federal court in Manhattan in early 2020 and pled our case to a judge. I literally took my watch off and handed it to her in the courtroom and explained everything that we were doing. And the United States federal justice system saved us, and it protected the right to upcycle. And in 2021, we won that lawsuit with, a landslide victory, a massive, report basically that the judge wrote to say what Vortic Watch Company is doing. And this form of upcycling is okay, as long as the customer knows what they're buying, which my customers always did and now certainly do.
Wow, that sounds like a very exhausting experience. Is there a main lesson that you've taken from that experience?
Yeah, they call me, my team now calls me the director of hard conversations.
Oh.
And that was and should have been just a difficult conversation between myself and someone very high up, a C-level executive at the Swatch Group. We could have sat down across the table, and I offered this very early on because that would have saved me and us a lot of money. It could have been a simple conversation over coffee, explaining what I do, making friends, saying, hey, we're all just trying to make money. We're all just trying to have fun. And unfortunately, it turned into that massive legal battle. And really, when it comes down to it, it was simply a difficult conversation between me and a few other people. And the more people you get involved in those difficult conversations, the more complex it becomes, the more, in this case, federal resources you waste. But that was the biggest learning, is how to have hard conversations and how to not be afraid of what comes out of those hard conversations. And I've applied that and continue to apply it in my life, personal and professional, really every day.
Now, that's a great lesson, though. And I'm really curious why they did not want to discuss it with you or settle, because, I mean, it seems obvious that you're not stealing from them.
It seems obvious, but, from their perspective, I mean, they're a multi-billion-dollar foreign conglomerate. They own, 30 some different watch brands. And the brands that they own is the value of the company. And so if you look at Rolex, if you look at, Omega, their biggest, the Swatch Group's biggest brand is Omega. You look at Coca-Cola, you look at Apple, you look at Disney, the world's most famous brands. If anyone ever uses their logo, their likeness, their brand in any way, they immediately sue them. And and that's just how they do business. Some people call it a scorched earth policy, and some people call it just an attorney on a retainer doing their job. And that's really all it was, is the Swatch Group's attorneys were just doing their job. And unfortunately, their job made my life a living hell for a few years.
I bet it did. Now, you're one of the few people reviving American manufacturing. What is something nobody talks about when it comes to making physical products in the US at scale right now?
Most of the things that people don't talk about are those last few words that you said, is at scale. So in America right now, we are capable of making almost anything. We can manufacture things at a high level of quality. And in watches specifically, I think watches are a great example because it's not a commodity. So I don't have a whole lot of competitors. So I can be really transparent about all the stuff that we do. Because, you could rip me off and make a watch that looks just like this in China, but that defeats the entire purpose, because everything I do is made in America. So if it's not made here, it's not a real Vortic or Colorado watch. But almost anyone in America can manufacture one thing, 100 things, maybe 1,000 of the same thing. But what China and other countries are really good at, and then, Switzerland in watches, especially when you look at Rolex or Omega, these big brands, is making hundreds of thousands or millions of the same thing, mass production. And what's interesting and why I love being a student of history is we used to be that. Really, there's a few industries that you can still reference that America is really good at mass manufacturing. One of those is cars. Our auto industry is massive, and we're pumping out millions of cars a year here, and that's what we're known for. But 100 years ago, it was watches. In the early 1900s, we were making pocket watches. These pocket watches companies like Waltham and Elgin and Hamilton, Illinois, they made tens of millions of pocket watches. They were all the same. It's kind of an anecdote that we're not sure how to verify, but allegedly Waltham Watch Company in Waltham, Massachusetts was studied by Henry Ford when he was creating Ford Motor Company and basically creating the mass assembly lines that Ford created, because Waltham was doing it in the late 1800s and for tiny little pocket watches, right? So that's the thing that people don't want to talk about today, especially with tariffs and trying to revitalize American manufacturing. People like me can run American manufacturing companies at a small scale, and we can figure that out, and we can make really high quality products here. But if I make 3,000 watches this year, that's a lot. That's really hard. I'm going to expend a lot of resources trying to make a few thousand watches. And Rolex makes 1 million watches a year. Wow. Because they've been around for 100 years. They've done the same thing, and every single one of those watches is $10,000 or more. So you do the math on that, like there is some sort of critical mass that I'm not at yet. But it takes a long time to build the infrastructure and raise the capital to actually compete at scale. And that's why I try to add those two words to basically everything I talk about. Is it's not enough to just say made in USA. It's not enough to just try to make things here. It's no, we need to make them at scale. Otherwise, we're just never going to be able to compete.
Gotcha. How have the latest political changes affected your business? Or what political changes would you love to see in the next few years to help the US economy?
I'll answer both of those. So the tariffs did not directly impact my business, since almost all or virtually all of our watches are made in USA. So I don't import very many components. So my costs did not increase. I am lucky in that sense. Most of my competitors import, about half of the watch components, and then, at least assemble in America, and their business is obviously hurt drastically from the tariffs. Any uncertainty though in the market, especially the stock market, and so the roller coaster that the stock market's been from the announcement of tariffs and all the changes, uncertainty hurts the luxury market. You don't buy things you don't need when you don't feel safe and secure, right? Is it the hierarchy of needs, right? You have to have safety first, and so if you feel unsafe, you're not going to go spend thousands of dollars on something. You're going to wait and see. And so a lot of my customers, I think, have been waiting to see. And so our revenue's down a little bit, I think, from that. And the things that allegedly are coming that should help us a lot, and the things that I would do to change this, instead of tariffs, or maybe with tariffs, if you truly want to revitalize American manufacturing, first is we need lower interest rates. Because like we talked about, if I want to scale, I need capital. I need funding, whether it's loans or investors, or, we need free market capital running to entrepreneurs like me, investing in people like me that are investing that capital into machines, equipment, people making things in America. And so lower interest rates creates more liquidity in the market. That's number one. Number two is, I think, different incentives for American manufacturers. There was one that they did during COVID times that was called the Paycheck Protection Program, and it gave people a refund. It gave people like me, entrepreneurs, a refund on their payroll taxes if we kept all of our employees throughout the whole pandemic. Cool. even if we couldn't afford to, or it was difficult to afford to keep our people, instead of laying them off, if we kept all of our people, then we got a break on payroll taxes. And so I think if something like that could occur for American manufacturing companies, then that would really help me, literally hire more people, less headwinds in, growing my staff and hiring more people. And there's a, laundry list of other government incentives and other things that the government and local, state and local governments can do to revitalize American manufacturing. But again, all of that takes a lot of time. So these short-term changes that we don't know whether or not they're permanent kind of take away from that whole conversation. We need the same thing for years and years so that people like me can build a foundation and then grow.
Stability, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I keep my fingers crossed for you.
Yeah. Well, my dad always says, mostly about golf, I'd rather be lucky than good. So I've gotten lucky most of my life, and so some of the times I've gotten lucky, people have said like, "Oh, like you're really successful," or like that worked really well, or like you're really good at that. It's like, well, timing is everything. So I'm trying to do the right thing and continue to do the right thing and make things in America. But at the same time, I do think right now is the best time to manufacture here. And I think some of these changes are coming. And most importantly, to really answer all of your questions there, the conversation is started. I'm on lots of podcasts now, and people are asking me for quotes for, news stories about what's it like to be an American manufacturing business. And I've been doing it for 10 years and no one's asked me some of these questions before. So the conversation has gotten started, and that makes me feel good. And that makes me feel like there's hope and people care.
There's always hope.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious, how difficult was it to build a loyal client base of people who are happy to invest at your price points? Because as we talked about before, you are in the luxury market. So I guess isn't always difficult to get started in the luxury market, or was it going strong straight away?
Well, it's difficult because you have to pick one, right? So when you start a company, the hardest thing you have to do is, first, if it's a product company, you have to have minimum viable product. You have to have the basic starting point of this is what I'm going to sell. And then you have to find product market fit.
Yep.
And so when you have those two things, now you can scale. And to get those two things, you have to choose your product, solidify that, have stability in the product line and the product offerings. And then you have to figure out what level of customer and what price point you're going to sell that product for. And it's all made up. Like, it's just, there's no science behind that. There's no, like, if you do this, then you'll make money. If you price it here, then so you have to just put yourself out there. And so we launched initially in 2014 on Kickstarter, and that was great because, it was crowdfunding. We basically asked people to vote with their wallet. Do you want this product to exist? Here's the idea. Here's the price point we're thinking. Back then, we were charging somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 for the watches that we currently charge $3,000 to $5,000 for, mostly because we just had no idea how much it would cost to make, and it costs a lot more to make than we thought. But we put ourselves out there. We got it started. A bunch of people backed us. We had in our first Kickstarter campaign, 60 random people from all over the world buy, pre-order watches. It took almost a year to figure out how to get them to the customers. And to really answer your question, I think the best thing that I did to kind of push through some of that difficulty and find product market fit is I personally called all of my first 100 customers. I got the UPS delivery notification when they got their watch, and I called them. And I said, hey, it's RT. I'm the founder of the company that you just opened the box from this, Vortic watch company. I just want to make sure you like it and, get any feedback from you, just like right off the bat, see if you love it. And 10 of those 100 people are now investors in my company. Because really, the answer to your question is trust. And now those 100 people, they all got to speak directly to me. They got to provide their feedback, whether it was good or bad. It is what it was. And they had their voice heard. I gave them the time of day. I listened and I implemented a lot of the ideas I got from there, and they saw me implementing those ideas. And so a lot of them, like I said, became, investors. A lot of them are still my best customers. They've bought 3, 4, 5, a couple of my customers have 20 plus watches from us over the last 10 years. And it's all from really just putting myself out there and making sure my customers trust me and or trust the brand and or trust the company and the products that we create. I think the best way to do that is to vulnerably share, be transparent, and just operate with a high level of integrity, which to me is just doing it the right way. But that's difficult. You have to show up at 100% every single day and do the right thing. And that's hard.
It is hard, but I think trust is really what it comes down to. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things. Like when you're a new brand, then people don't know what your brand stands for. And that, I imagine, makes it especially difficult in the luxury market, because then people have to pay a lot of money to find out what your brand is worth to them.
Yep. Yeah, true.
What have you learned about luxury marketing in particular that really helped you grow your business?
So, biggest thing that I would say is an unlock for me in luxury marketing is that there is zero correlation between the cost to make something and the price that you charge. Right. The value of your product is perceived value, because in the luxury market it is an emotional purchase. These liquor bottles behind me are a great example. I can buy a bottle of Maker's Mark for $40 at the liquor store, or I can go buy a high-end scotch for $1,000. To most people, and I'm going to insult some bourbon people and scotch people when I say this, but to 90% of the world, it's some brown liquid in a bottle. But to some people, to the true customer, the value of that scotch, they might not even open it. They might sit on the shelf like some of these that I haven't even opened. I've never even tried, because the value of that bottle is so great. And that's my perceived value. I start with the value that the brand puts on the product, and which is the price. I do not start with how much I think it cost to make that brown liquid in the bottle. And so that was a huge unlock, is just totally separating the cost to manufacture something from the price that you charge. And for me, with the Vortic watch company especially, we sell art for your wrist. We sell pieces of American history. They tell little stories. They're conversation pieces. And so the price of each watch is unique. They're all one of a kind. And that has absolutely nothing to do with the cost to manufacture it. Which also varies a lot, but it doesn't matter. And so that's a huge difference, and is really only in luxury. Obviously, if you're in commodities, that's totally different. What you charge for a t-shirt or a hat or food, it's very commoditized, and it's definitely based on the cost to get it to the table.
Yeah, in luxury marketing, you don't have to compete compete for price, right? It's not the race to the bottom. It's kind of like the opposite of that. It sometimes feels
Yep. Yep. And sometimes, and it's fascinating, but sometimes charging more makes it sell faster.
right.
And that's also fascinating. And I do have customers, I still have customers that say we're not charging enough. You know, they're saying like, hey, you know, your watches are for Vortic, our average watch is probably $4,000 right now. Our range is probably 2,500 to 10,000 roughly. And I have had potential customers say, hey, let me know when you make one that's 50,000. I don't buy watches that are less than 50,000. So, you know, it is what it is. And there are hundreds of thousands of potential customers that would say something like that. And yeah, that's a level of wealth that is hard to imagine for people like myself and probably most people. But you have just as many people saying that. And I have just as many people saying that as I have people that say, you know, there's no way I could ever justify spending more than $500 on a watch. You know, you don't need a watch. So I'm right in between, and it's a wonderful little playground of the luxury space.
I like it. Now, building a company like yours requires resilience. And I think that's something that we've already heard about. But resilience can also quickly turn into rigidity. So how do you stay adaptable without losing your principles?
Yeah, I think that really comes from the curiosity and having an open mind and being a good listener, being open to feedback. You know, I try my best to ask for feedback from customers, from my employees, you know, from my team, and really listen and take action on that feedback. And you know, I think you can tell when you're being a little bit too rigid or you're taking a hard line on something, because people start to shut down. They start to stop asking questions, and they're just like, okay, well, you know, he doesn't seem open to my suggestions, so I'm just going to stop giving those suggestions. And that's when you've lost. So continuing down that path of curiosity, asking questions, knowing yourself and knowing, yeah, I think that's that like emotional intelligence, just kind of navigating those spaces where it's just like, I can kind of see it in someone's eyes if they have a question, and I'm just like, hey, it's okay. You know, what's your question? How can I help? You know, did I do something wrong? Did I say something wrong? How can I be of service? And so those conversations start with you, and they start with, you know, you opening your mind up and not being so rigid. So you can constantly learn and get better.
Which brings us back to having those hard conversations, right?
Yep. Because sometimes that feedback sucks and you do not want to hear it. And it's a punch in the gut and it hurts the ego and all that stuff. But you need it. Otherwise, you know, I mean, there's been times in my life where I become a complete robot, you know, and I'm just operating. I'm doing what I thought I was supposed to do today, or I think my investors want me to do today, or I'm trying to make money or make my family proud or something like that. And I just get in my own way and I turn that stuff off. So you've got to get your head out of the sand and figure that out. And I'm constantly coaching myself through that kind of stuff. So I think that's very normal.
Yeah, I think it's really normal. So what do you do on a daily basis to keep yourself grounded and energized? Can you walk us through a typical day in your life? Like, what does your exercise routine look like? What does your diet look like? What are the small things you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, so I try, and I have two little kids, so my life looks very different than it did, you know, 8 years ago when I started the company. But my kids are about to turn 6 and 8. And so my day ideally starts with me waking up before they do. I make coffee for myself and my wife. I bring her coffee. She's usually sitting in bed or, you know, just waking up. I take my coffee out. We have a little area in the corner of our house with a bunch of windows. And so I either sit there and journal or do yoga or just stare outside and listen to the birds and have my coffee. And hopefully I get 20 minutes of that, you know, before one of the kids comes down and is like, Dad, make me breakfast. And then, you know, at a certain point we make breakfast. I take my kids to school. it's awesome. Our school for the kids doesn't have buses. And so I get to drive my kids to school every day. And so that's really cool. We, chat the whole time, or we listen to music and, just like spend true like father-son time in the car with sometimes just one, but about half the time, both of them. And about half of my days, after I take them to school, I come back home and I work out. And I either lift, or my wife and I go on a walk. We go to yoga together. I would say like a quarter of the time I'm working out with her, and a quarter of the time I'm working out by myself. And then a half the time I just go straight from dropping the kids off and go to school. So I try to do some sort of physical activity 4+ days a week. And that's about the best I can do at this point. 2 of those days typically are weekends because I have more flexibility. And I've just learned I can't work out past noon. I can't turn my brain off. Like as soon as I switch into work mode, I'm in work mode. And then I work, and then I heard on a podcast actually, this really cool idea. When I get home from work, like I like having an office away from my house. I can't work from home. I can't separate the two mentally. And so when I'm driving home from work, I try to listen to a podcast or listen to music or something that's going to change my mindset back from work mode to dad mode, and then what I heard on a podcast is when you get out of the car in your garage, just like physically touch the top of the door, or, like something that you like tap. And when you tap something, your body knows, and it's like this physical reminder to, okay, I'm a dad now. I'm a husband now. I'm just a normal person now. I'm not this high power entrepreneur, taking care of my team now. It's 5:30 at 6 o'clock. I'm switching to dad mode. And that's also hard, but I try my best to do that and turn it all off for the most part, at least until the kids go to bed. And if there's one thing that I really didn't get done that I need to, my wife and I will sit up in bed, and we're both entrepreneurs. So, we're answering emails at 8 p.m., 9 p.m. It's like, oh, forgot to get that done. Let me knock that out before we fall asleep. But that's a typical day, and I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm very grateful, especially for Lindsay, because she is also an entrepreneur. So she gets it, and she doesn't judge me for wanting and loving to work.
Yeah, it's great that you found a routine that works for both of you. Now, is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners today?
I think overall, especially with current events and everything that we talked about, I just keep coming back to the American dream. I keep coming back to made in USA and what it really stands for. And to me, that's that dream. Like if you have a big dream, you're not alone. There are absolute lunatics like me out there pursuing massive dreams. And if you tell me I can't do it, I'm going to go do it just so I can show you that it's possible. And so if you also think like that, you are not alone. It's totally okay. And you should, DM me on LinkedIn or Instagram or something. Let's connect, because I'm always trying to surround myself with, cool people that are after some big dreams that most people think are crazy.
Like-minded entrepreneurs out there. So where can those people find you online if they would like to learn more about you or connect with you?
Yeah, so my 2 brands are Vortic Watch Company, which is vorticwatches.com, and Colorado Watch Company, which is coloradowatchcompany.com. And then I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn primarily, and it's just RT Custer without the periods. RT, like Robert Thomas, Custer.
Perfect. RT, thank you so much for sharing all those stories and insights with us today. It's been really great talking with you.
Thanks again for having me. This was so fun.
Keep up the great work. Talk soon and take care. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Wired for Success podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please take a sec to rate and review my show or share it with a friend. That way you can support the show and help me reach and support other entrepreneurs like yourself as well. If you would like my help to figure out how you can go from overwhelmed and overworked hustler to empowered and confident leader, check out my website at www.wiredforsuccess.solutions and book a free 20-minute strategy session with me. Can't wait to help you get wired for success. Until next time, take care. Bye.